Welcome to Ghost Stories because everybody has one. I'm Stephanie.
I'm Susan Townsend.
And this is our friend, Susan Berner. We've known Susan since we grew up with Susan. She was our dance instructor.
Well, you didn't grow up with me because...
As I grew up.
And I watched them grow up.
Yeah. To me, that's, as I grew up.
There we go.
So, we started the page. She was like, "Oh, I've got some ghost stories to tell you." Susan and I have not heard these stories whatsoever. So this is our first time hearing them, as you will. And so we're just going to go with it as she tells us. But one question I want to ask, so before you now we haven't started the stories, but when was your first experience ever with anything unexplained?
You don't have to tell the story, just tell us.
Right.
Yeah.
Not until I was 18 years ago when my mother died.
Okay.
Not until 18 years ago when my mother died.
And you would have been how old?
Well, I'm 60 minus 18 is how much?
I don't
Ask me
know.
to
How
do
old
math.
were you when your mother passed?
So that would be 50 to 42.
I was 42.
42, okay.
I was 42 before the unexplained happened.
Okay, so go ahead, Susan.
Well, I was just going to say, that's a lot of life to live before ever having anything weird happen.
Right.
Well, we always told ghost stories and stuff at parties and spend the night parties, and they would really scare me, and I'd have to go sleep in the other room. So I didn't like all of that.
Because growing up, this was before everybody was attached to their phones, right? And
Right.
then we grew up in a town where there was no cable. So storytelling was what we did for fun, and like at parties or when we
Right.
were, yeah.
So did you believe, so then that follows up with a question. So did you believe in actual ghosts or just enjoy telling the stories? You know what I'm saying?
Did you think
feel
ghosts were real,
or did
they
you just enjoy the ghost
part
stories?
of the story?
Because my stories are a little bit sort of kind of like Joyce's, where she said after your dad died, about the phone. That's kind of how it is for me. I'm not saying mine is a ghost story. I'm just saying mine is an explained story.
Okay.
Maybe there are spiritual stories.
Right. Yeah. I totally
There's
agree.
spiritual
yeah,
stories.
absolutely. That's kind of how I feel. All right, so let's start with whichever one you feel like going into.
Well, we live in a county in Georgia. My parents are from here. However, I grew up in Columbia, South Carolina. So our grandmother had a farm at the end of the road where your mom lives now. And so when we were kids, we always came here on vacations and spent our Christmas and summer. And my brother had a group of 4 friends that were all boys, and I had the Brown girls that were all girls. And so we stayed our summers here. So this was a really special place to us, being that we lived in the city, but we were going to the country. So this was our whole life. And my cousin owned the land after my grandmother died. My cousin owned the farm, and then my dad bought it from him, and because it was they tore down grandmother's old house. So my mother became ill with colon cancer, but we never considered she was going to die. We thought that she would be well. So that's when we planned to build a house for her on the farm. They were going to retire, keep their house in Columbia, and she was going to stay down here until Daddy retired. So it was just a really special house. I designed the house. My best friend's husband built the house. We had our favorite designer, interior designer. She did everything from pick the dishes to pick out the sheets. And so my parents would see the things that we would buy along the way, but didn't know where they were going to go. We were storing them, and they came for a weekend to think that they were going to move all this stuff in, but it was all complete. All they had to do is open the door and walk in. There was music playing. There was fire in the fireplace. It was a very special moment in my life that I could do this for my mother. And it was very emotional and very just a special place for our family to gather and so we were always there, and we had it for 5 years, and then Mother died. But when she was there, she was always on the bed in her room. There is a window, and that road that intersects from Old River Road to 119.
Yes.
Lots of stuff would happen there. Believe it or not, lots of things would happen there. And so she would always sit there and read the paper and look out that window. And one day she called up and she said, "There's a snake on my porch and somebody needs to come kill it." That was just her place.
Yeah.
She loved sitting on that bed. That was the most beautiful bed. And she'd read her paper, and then she'd talk on the phone. And it was not a cell phone, it was a real phone.
Right.
And she would look out that window. So she died. She was here in February, and she went home and she started taking chemotherapy, and the chemotherapy was too much for her, and she died. And we were not expecting that.
Right.
It was very hurtful for all of us. And so I have a brother and then my father. We all decided that we were just going to sell the farm and sell the house because it was too painful for us to continue to go back. Well, it was also very painful, the idea of thinking selling, having people come in and just take our stuff. That meant so much to us. I couldn't do that. So I let your mother and Donna Martin and one other person come through and pick out things that they wanted. So we only went there 3 times after she died. One was to go to see what it is that your mother wanted. Your mother was with me. My mother's bed was already gone because my niece got it. And so there was no bed in Mother's room. And Daddy and Mother didn't sleep in the same room. She said it was because he snored.
Makes a good marriage.
I can understand that.
She said it was because he snored. So, but he was around the corner, and so your mother and I went in there, and she wanted the bedspread that was on Daddy's bed, and there was a newspaper laying on the bed. But every time you went into my mother's room in that house in 5 years, there was a newspaper spread out on the bed. So we leave. We're going through there, and I said, "Joyce, this is just kind of spooky to me. We just need to go. We'll come back tomorrow. Talk to Susan or Sarah. One of you got something."
It was Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Okay. And we'll just come back and get it tomorrow. And nobody had a key to that house but me. And I had the key, and I came back with your mother the next day, and we go in the house, and we're just looking around, and we went around there to Daddy's bedroom, and the newspaper was spread open on the bed.
Oh, wow.
The day before, it was just laying there folded. First of all, there is no reason there should have been a newspaper there at all. And it's because everything had been cleaned out. I don't even know why there was a newspaper there. But when we came back the next day, the newspaper was wide open. I said, "Joyce."
She needed one more visit.
Wow.
She needed one more
I
visit.
said, "Joyce, that newspaper wasn't open yesterday." She said, "It sure was not."
I think I remember Mama telling me that story because I thought for some reason I thought it was a card, but a newspaper. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, it still gets
Did it
me.
make you feel kind of
satisfied?
like that Mom's still around though?
Well, in a way, it made me kind of sad because it made me know that she was not actually ready to leave. That's kind of really how it made me feel. It made me feel like she wasn't ready to leave, and she was still there. And I don't know if you can go and you can come.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Or if the energy is just so strong, it repeats itself.
Perhaps she might still be there. I mean, that's how much she loved the house. That's how much it was so important to all of us. Well, we sold the house immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody went back. And the day before, it took 6 months to get the appraisal, the people to get the loan and all that. So we signed the house over 6 months later. Well, as little children, there was an oak tree. That was where grandmother's house was. There was this huge, ginormous oak tree. And we would play in that tree. And we would climb in it, and we would sit up in there, and it was right off my grandmother's porch. And so when we built the house, the screen porch kind of was underneath those long arms. Now that tree had been there over 100 years,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and so my boys had a swing in it and a tire swing and whatever. When we came back 6 months later, that tree was dead.
Oh wow! And oak trees don't just die. I mean, it takes them a long time to die.
Yeah. Oak trees are.
There's
Wow.
no reason it was not diseased. It had not been disturbed by the building of the house because we made certain
Right.
Right.
When it clearly had been there.
Right.
Or, yeah.
there's no explanation for why the tree was dead, except that nobody in our family owned that land anymore, and that was an end of an era.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that tree
That's
died.
crazy. Wow. See, I like those kind of stories. To me, if it had been, we've lost our father, so I can kind of relate to losing a
Right.
parent, and so I like kind of that story because to me that story is telling because she knew you were coming back,
Yeah.
and so it was kind of like Susan, I'm still around you. That's kind of
Right.
how I see it as. So
Right.
I love those kind of stories. I really do.
This one you'll like.
Okay, we're gonna take a break right here. We're gonna pause this. I'm gonna start a new video, just for the length of uploading it to YouTube. So go ahead.
Be sure you like us on Facebook if you like these stories and like to hear more stories. Most importantly, what you need to do is like our video and subscribe. You can find us on Facebook. We're Ghost Stories because everybody has one. If you have a story you'd like to share with us, please email us. We are sisterghoststories@gmail.com. Missing from our story today is Sarah Diamond. She is sick, so we wish Sarah well, and we'll see you next time. Be sure to remember, if you tell us yours, we'll tell you ours.